G'day everyone, Prep Aussie here. I hope you're all well in whatever part of the world you're watching this video. Today is Saturday, the 25th of August 2018, and the time here today is 09:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. Wow. Bet you didn't see that coming. This is part 3 of Australian politics. I'm not going to do any more after this because I hate them anyway. So I'm wasting good oxygen talking about this stuff. But obviously, because it's so important, I have to. Look, no one. If you're sitting on the other side of this screen, which I obviously hope you are, because you're not sitting here, none of us should be surprised by what happened yesterday. These things are set up well in advance. And as my good old dad always says, the only good politician is a dead politician. They're all thieves, liars, and bloody fornicators, using the old scripture sort of thing. They're not interested in us. They're not interested in anything else except themselves. And as I said, if you listened to the Fraser Anning speech, it was a precursor to what happened yesterday. The party has shifted to the right. Someone, hopefully, has realised that there's no value in going to the left. And anybody out there who, hopefully there's no one out there, who thinks that Malcolm Turnbull is a great bloke, this and that, blah, blah, blah. The other old saying is, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That guy has knifed more people than, he's been the biggest slimy, two-faced scumbag running around in Australian politics since the day before he got there. Because remember, he was in the Labor Party in New South Wales under Neville Wran. The guy's just a scumbag. I'm sorry, but I haven't liked him since the first time I ever met him. Saw him on TV, etc. All this policy stuff, he said, they did absolutely fire truck all for Australia. Let's be honest. Everyday Australians. I know I'm not better off, and I don't know anybody else is better off. Even the rich people aren't better off. So yeah, they did a really good job. And if you look at if you were a conservative, or a right-leaning conservative in that party, then you would have been walking around shaking your head sometimes going, well, are we the Liberal Party or the Labor Party? Now, did you notice? Now, this is going to be interesting, and I hope that everybody noticed this. Did you notice Scott Morrison is a Christian? Josh Frydenberg is a Jew. Why is that relevant? Because, as I said, listen to Fraser Anning's speech. And it's ironic that Josh Frydenberg came out and went, oh, it's disgraceful, and used the, blah, 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 and the very next week, he's the Deputy Prime Minister of a new party who's gone to the right. Guys, listen, I said this before. All this stuff is scripted and, sorry, I'm drinking my coffee. It's early morning. And, they treat us like mugs when in actual fact we actually realise what they're doing anyway, if you're awake. Now remember, there's 95% of the population in Australia that's sitting there today going, no idea. Absolutely none. And not only that, they couldn't care less who Scott Morrison. They don't even know who Scott Morrison is, or the other bloke, Josh Frydenberg. No idea, because they pay attention to who's running their lives in this country, and that's why we're in this shithole mess that we're in. It's infuriating, nauseating at best, but when you think about it, is it any wonder? Because what's your kids when they come home? What do? Just watch YouTube. You know, this is an ironic fact, since we shifted from Perth back home to Queensland, we actually haven't had a TV in this house for over a year. And you know what we've done? We've actually chatted, talked, and gone to sleep early. And we haven't paid attention. You know, I pay attention to most of this stuff. My wife, you know, forget about it. But my point here is that, all right, I'm going to go around the country. If you take each metropolitan centre, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, forget about Darwin, and the ACT, what have you got in each of those capital cities? Well, people that are very lefty, you know, extremely lefty. Did that the wrong way, didn't I? Lefty. Can't even get it right. But the problem is that you've now reached a breaking point for the rest of the nation, where people like us, who are right, on the right, sorry, and we are right, finally just said enough's enough. It's interesting to note that I was watching something on the ABC News Live this morning. Don't ask me why, but and there was a Nationals minister on there saying, well, you know, everyone needs to remember the 10 million people that live in the countryside. Think about that, 10 million people. So that's half. If you take the Australian population, which is supposed to be 25 million, if you halve that, you're almost at the point, well, you are at the point, as the same process is happening here in Australia that happened in America. The polarization of the left and the right is very entrenched here now. And it is going to change. We are going to go back to the norms of life and the norms of living a good life. I hope you understand that, because that's actually what's happening here. So I have some more coffee. We can't continue down the same path that we've been going. And finally, the people on the right have realised that they're actually a majority, not a minority. And the people on the left now actually realise that, we're a minority, because there's a lot more people on the right than there is on the left, as you will know. So the next couple of months are going to be extremely interesting in Australian politics. They're going to get the rule book and go, we're going to rip it up. And they're going to continually repeat the mantra from the good days of the Liberal governments. And you'll see, and I can back this up because I saw it this morning, you're going to see Scott Morrison, Josh Frydenberg, and Peter Dutton, and any of those guys, they're all going to be shown to be seated and sitting with and taking advice from people in the Howard government, people in the Fraser government, all these sorts of things, where they're going to lean back to the good old days. That's where this is going. And it's up to us individually to get on board with that, because if we don't, we're going to lose this country. As I said before, we are on the verge of losing it anyway. And if we don't stand our ground and make our voice heard now, and I mean right now, as I'm doing, then we are going to lose this country. There's no two ways about that. Thankfully, although they did it the wrong way, but did they do it the wrong way? Who cares anyway? It's been done. The Australian politicians are actually starting to listen to their electorates and saying, we don't want Muslim immigration, they don't mix. We don't want free handouts for everyone and their children and everyone they bring in this country. We want to sort out Medicare, medical aid, and how about looking after the people that actually pay taxes and support this country, which is obviously a huge majority of the country. Stop pandering to the minorities. There's one interesting thing that I heard yesterday. I can't even remember who said it, but it was something to do with the gay marriage plebiscite, etc. And it was the number one turning point for everyone in the government that was right-wing to just say enough is enough. And isn't that interesting? After everything else that's gone on, that was the number one turning point. Because I know for me personally, and my wife and everyone else I've spoken to, you feel like they've denigrated the institution of marriage to a level where it's just irrelevant. Why bother getting married? That's more or less the point. Because if you're not going to be recognised as a married couple, as a man and a woman, then what's the point? And, I've been married for 20 years now, so it's interesting to note that it was a real big turning point for me as well. I thought, this is crazy. Why are we giving? Why? And the turning point is this. It's very simple. I won't talk about myself, but I'll talk about everyone else. The turning point is very simple. It was the number one fact where the majority went, well, hang on a minute. Why the flippin' hell am I worried about the minority? And the reason for that is, and the left hasn't realised it, was because of the rhetoric that they used for everyone that started to say something about, well, I don't believe in saying, oh, you're a bigot and you're racist and you're a homophobe and you're this and that. And it was that actual moment in our Australian history where people just went, hey, look, I've had enough of this shit. I ain't putting up with this shit anymore. I'm sick of listening to you bloody toe rags telling us, the people who pay all your taxes, by the way, and do most of the work in this country, and you're the minority. Yeah, sure, we have to look after you, but we don't have to kowtow to you. And that was the big difference. Kowtowing and looking after are two different things. I personally got to that point because of the gay marriage thing. It really pissed me off. Every time someone opened their mouth about, well, no, I don't agree with that, they were classed as a bigot. Not a bloody bigot. In a Judeo-Christian society, it shouldn't exist. Because it has, and because it is, do I really care? No. Whatever you do, once you walk in your door and you shut your door in your own house, is your own business. And there was nothing wrong with that policy. But people just couldn't stand that they were given that choice. Now, the problem is that it's come back to bite them on the arse because people like us have said, well, hang on a minute. How about looking after the majority, not the minority? Listen to what we're saying. Anyway, I'll leave it there. But, hopefully these two get their act together pretty quick and bring Australia back on track, because it is coming, folks. And whether they want to do it or not, people like me will probably in the future be calling for stiff arm opposition, rebellions, because we can't go on as we're going on. Our kids will have no life in the future if we keep on going like this. Anyway, we'll go to the prayers. Well, as always, folks, it's pretty interesting, the verse of the day. It's funny how I reckon it must be tuned into the way I'm thinking. Verse of the day. I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard me cry for mercy. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. Wow, pretty powerful. I'll say it again. I love the Lord, for he heard my voice. He heard my cry for mercy. Because he turned his ear to me, I will call on him as long as I live. Oh, pretty good. And okay, folks, as always, we'll finish with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory for ever and ever. Amen. Just one final thing. For the gentleman, the Aussie bloke who sent in a thing the other day saying about the King James prayer. Stop saying the King James prayer. And I wrote back and I said, no, not going to happen. Look, this may surprise a lot of people. I'm not really a Christian. I say this prayer because it's probably the only prayer, one, that I remember, and two, that I think, as far as I remember, it's the only prayer that's been written that came from God. All the other ones are made up. That's written, several times in the Bible, that this is the only prayer that was given to us by God to say. I have no leanings either left or right as regards to religion. I just hate all organised religion. Doesn't matter what it is. Buddhist, the whole lot. I think Buddhist is probably my pick of the ones, or Shinto in Japanese, because they're more of an internal, personal, internal look at your life. The others don't give a crap about. The reason I say the King James prayer is because it's widely recognised as the true version of the Lord's Prayer. And I'm saying it because it's a prayer to God, the Lord. Simple as that. I'm not saying it because of any religion. So please don't write to me anymore saying, it's wrapped up in Masonism or Masons or... I don't give a shit. I say it because I like it. And I get a lot of responses as regards saying the same thing. So I hope you understand that. Anyway, folks, have a good weekend. Speak Monday. Prep out.